guess what I mainly have to get straight here is the basic facts. You know? What exactly the deal with THQ is, and where is this record supposed to be released, and all that stuff.
Right.
Maybe I should start from the beginning. So, how the connection come about with THQ?
Are we going already?
We're rolling. No formalities are above.
Basically, started in so far as we had a series of record companies that were interested in the group in London, and while they were sort of arguing or discussing what the deal was going to be, we got a phone call because a friend of ours brought a tape over of our music to Japan. So in the middle of these deals being worked out, the company phoned up, a Japanese company, and invited us to come over to record an album. And we thought it was probably be a good experience and an unusual experience to come to Japan to record, because most people either go to Europe or America to record. So we thought we'd give it a try, and it's quite unusual insofar as we didn't realise the problems we might have with the translation, and because when you're in the recording studio you have things like it's almost like music speak insofar as you say, oh, that bit's too woolly or that's too wooden, and it's like to translate that it can be sort of quite strange, especially for the translator who's not used to being in the studio. But the recording was actually turned out okay in the end, and near the end the engineer, he almost learnt English insofar as, you know, communication got so good that we didn't need the translator really, you know, so that's pretty good.
Who produced it?
We produced it ourselves, and the engineer engineered it.
Well, what was his role exactly? Like, what kind of stuff was he doing?
Well, he was just literally engineering it.
It was just setting up the sounds, you know, to get so it wasn't feeding back, you know. He was just getting the levels, you know. So he's basically a master of the graphics of the desk and stuff. So you can say, can I have it more trebly or more mid or whatever you needed, you know.
And as producers, what did you guys do?
Well, basically, we started with just having the bass drum and the snare, and tried to get a good sound from the snare and the bass drum, and then build up on top of that layers such as like the bass guitar and the drums, and then throw in like the rhythm guitar. So basically get all the rhythm instruments going first, and then you start adding the top, sort of like the icing, so to speak, like the guitar solos and backing vocals and the lead vocal and any other little extras, you know, like a castanet, as an example, you know.
Just like production, really.
And just listen back to it on like a small cassette machine, just so you could sort of hear it, because just so you hear it on a variety of speakers, you know, because you can get so used to hearing it on one type of speakers that, you know, you sort of get so used to them that you don't seem to have any outlook on the sound, so to speak.
Awesome. Where were you guys staying during the month or so you were there?
A hotel.
Hotel,
Yeah.
Just living out of a hotel.
Well,
Yeah.
we hardly saw the hotel because we was in the studio the whole time. Yeah, it was really, you know, I think they expected us to be really lazy. I think the engineers and the people working there, I think they had an impression that Western people were really lazy and whatever, but I think we certainly changed their attitude in so far as us was concerned, because near the end of the day, you know, which is quite a long day, it's 12 till like almost like 12 at night, sometimes a bit
More,
later.
till 2 in the morning. Like,
Yeah.
it's about 12, 13, 14 hours every day.
And they were starting to nod off, you know, trying to keep themselves awake in the early hours, you know.
We kept waking the tape up, you know. Like, it turned around, because it can be a bit frustrating as well when you know, if you've got one thing you're working on, it's going on and on and on, you know, and you have to keep stopping and starting, or something's going on and on. You look around and someone's going like this. Yeah, and I think, as Paul said, I think they was pretty shocked that because we only had a short space of time. I mean, you know, a month, it was less than a month to make an album. Is not a long time at all, you know. And and of course we had all the problems with the communication over the first week or more, which really took up a long time. So because we wanted to get as best result as we could in the shortest possible time, meant that we had to really be there all day, every day, and just literally stop for an hour or something for lunch. So I think they were really quite surprised.
They don't understand the Western philosophy towards work. The sooner you get it done, the sooner you can get the hell out of there.
That's right, yeah. That's right.
Last time I talked to you, Paul, we delved into your life after the Clash in painful detail. How about you, Nigel? I don't know anything about you. Start from the beginning.
Well, I met Paul. I met Paul just after I was born, and then
really?
I was born at an early age.
You were born early. Oh, you've known Paul for a long time.
Yeah, we've known each other for about 13 years or something like that.
Was that right?
I used to be in a rockabilly band called Whirlwind, and I did sort of supports with the Clash, really sort of 1977, 78, 79. I just really knew, knew Paul from then, and I left that band about 1981. I did some stuff on my own. I started another band. I did some records with other people, and through that time, just having motorbike, and Paul having a motorbike, we used to meet up, go riding around. Of course, after Paul. After he left the Clash or the Clash finished or whatever, we would sort of hang out, and just sort of through a bit of fun, we sort of decided that we might make a single, just make a single for something to do, and the whole thing got completely out of hand till we got here.
This was after you had decided formally to get back into music, Paul.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Because you had been with there was the other fellow there. I believe you. I don't quite remember. You said you teamed up with another guy.
Oh yeah, that was Nigel.
Oh, it was Nigel. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
That was Nigel. Yeah, because we went with he's the one who came with me to El Paso.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. You and you met the guitar player because he was also a biker.
Yeah, in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's all coming back.
It's all feeding through. Yeah.
It's all coming back now. Well, Nigel, when Paul called you up, did you think, well, my ship has come in at last? I mean, what kind of expectations did you have in working with him? Obviously, he's got the name.
Well, see, the thing is, it's difficult because, we've known each other for a long time, and really that our friendship has not really been a part of whether he was in the Clash or not in the Clash. So, really, when it came round to that whole point, it seemed like a bit of an adventure rather than anything else. Something different to do. What can you say about expectations? I mean, we've been doing this for like 2 or 3 years, and so it didn't exactly, the first day of going, Paul Simonon from the Clash, right, here's £5,000, you know what I mean? It just doesn't work. I don't care who you are, it does not work like that, Of course, I would not say that because of Paul's situation of coming from there, people have listened, rather than said, oh, who's that, they've given you a listen, but it doesn't really matter if it's no good. It doesn't matter who you are. They still won't accept it. But I mean, of course, it's been helpful for us.
It's like a foot in the door.
Yeah,
that's right.
Tell me about what you guys have been doing since completing the record. You guys were doing the Quattro gigs right at the end of the.
That's right. Yeah.
What's transpired since?
Well, we went back and did Denmark, didn't we? Went back to Denmark.
And we played a festival in Denmark, and did a show in London, and basically we've been getting in the situation of getting a record deal for Europe and America, well, basically everywhere else outside of Japan, because the actual recording deal we had was such as we make the record for Japan, but we're able to have free license with no strings attached to sell it to anybody else outside of the country. So that makes, basically we've been getting a deal sorted out with a company in England and America for putting the record out worldwide, you know.
How's the response been from the record companies?
It's been really good. There's a guy, you might have heard of him, Miles Copeland, from IRS. He's been interested in the group from, you know, the first sort of shows we did in England. He came to nearly all the shows, so he's been really keen, you know. And so over the year he's been, you know, really on the case, wanting to get the deal. So that's all been sorted out at the moment. Still, the contract's all through, and our manager, she's taking care of it all. And apart from that, we've just been recovering from being in the studio, because it was pretty hectic for us, you know. And just working on some more songs, and just taking care of business, I suppose.
I'm kind of curious, when you often talk to people and you say, "Oh, we're working on a deal now with several companies are interested in."
Yeah.
When you go to meet with these people, what do you actually talk about?
Well, we don't meet them. The
That's
manager
why we
meets
have
them.
a manager. She talks to them.
What is she actually? What sort of conversation goes on?
I don't know. I suppose, you know, if they're interested, the good thing about the situation we was in was people were coming to us. You know, a decent company would phone up asking about the band, so they'd send a tape. You know, I've never been to one of those meetings, so I really couldn't tell you. I presume they just want to find out what the expectations of the company is and how much.
I think she probably just goes in and talks about the group, what they intend to do in the future and where they stand, and just sort of colour in the information that wouldn't be there, because, you know, they've just got a cassette to listen to.
Yeah.
I suppose it's like if someone come in to see you and I was trying to sell you a band, I presume it would be better if I could come to you and I said, well, this is the band, this is what they're doing, these are the songs, this is where we want to go, this is how we want to do it, you know, that sort of information, so you know where you stand as well within the deal, you know.
Oh, well, one reason I asked that, I was just trying to, you know, envision what's going on here. Like, go to the record company and, you know, they're talking, and you know, Miles Copeland is saying, well, there's this 18 to 25 demographic in Atlanta that's started to listen to Depeche Mode and The Cure, and we think they'd be very interested in your band. And if those bands start doing well in, you know, other areas of the States, well, we'll sign you. Just wondering what kind of, you know, why do these companies show interest and they never kind of get back to you?
I don't know. As I say, I don't really deal with them, so I don't know. I mean, as far as Miles is concerned, I mean, I haven't spoken any business with him apart from meeting him at a gig or something like that. And you know, as far as I can make out personally, he's a sort of fan of what we're doing, and he's interested in being involved. I don't know whether, as a businessman, I presume he must feel as though he can sell it, or there's a market for it. That, you know, otherwise it would not be interesting for himself. You know.
I guess what a lot of the fans here are wondering is, you said you originally had like interest was shown by several record companies back in the UK. How did this one went out though? Was it just financial? I mean, what exactly? You said you were kind of intrigued by the idea of recording in Japan, but was it merely the financial situation? What exactly?
Well, I think basically that
we just wanted to get on with it.
Get on with it, and everybody was like, they're trying to, you know, the basic scam is like they're trying to find out what you're offering us, and he's trying to find out what he's offering us, and you know, and I'm going to sit back and see if what you're going to give, and all this, and it's just going on. And the thing is, it's like, you know, you can lose 6 months like that, you know, and you know full well in any sort of business, it'll take you 6 weeks to turn a contract round anyway. That's if I get back to you this week and not have another meeting next week. And it just went on, and they, when we got the phone call from Japan, they were like on the case. It was like, we're interested, come over, this is the deal. And so we, well, not me, but our manager negotiated the deal, what she considered to be the best in our favour. And it was like within like 2 weeks we were here.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, you know, really, you know, and as Paul was saying, we reserved the rights to own the record outside here, so we didn't really, it was good for us to come here, and we also kept all our options open as well, so I suppose that's what your manager's for, to do that sort of thing for you.
Yeah, but it just so happens this company was sort of Johnny on the spot. It had
Well,
all worked out.
It was funny because when we come over here, we know some other friends over here, you know, and they were quite surprised that the record company, Portrait Records, a smaller company like that had got us, and they were going, well, how comes they got you? And we said they phoned us up, and it was like, oh, I don't believe it. They just phoned you up? And we said, yeah. So it was just a case of someone phoned up and they were just positive and they asked us.
Well, I guess they consider Paul a pretty good investment, from your days in class.
A safe bet.
Safe bet, yeah. Well, especially a Japanese fan. I mean, they will become your fan just on the basis of your photos before they even hear your music.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and obviously in your case, Paul, it's a benefit.
Yes, it helps. But I think at the end of the day, it's like Nigel said earlier. If the record's no good, if they don't like the music, then they're not going to sell something they don't like. So that was the strength of it. Really, was the songs that we'd written together.
In a sense, I guess with the Clash, you sort of lucked out because you were in the right place at the right time, playing the right music.
Yeah.
And you kind of rode the crest of the wave there. This time around, it must seem like sort of paddling up the river the wrong way. Are you working a lot harder now? Is it
yeah, I'm working a lot harder, and I don't sort of feel I'm backpedaling or anything like that. I'm enjoying it, so I'm not finding it hard work, and it's nice playing small places and big places. The thing I always found in the Clash is that when we reached the pinnacle of our success, playing large stadiums was something we didn't actually really enjoy all that much. So that's why near the end we started doing like 5 shows in Tokyo or 7 shows in New York, just so we could play a smaller place. So I mean, in this situation we're playing smaller places and we're building up, but I don't know, it's exciting really, because you're meeting people all the time, and in some ways you tend to meet more people than you would if you were playing in a stadium.
How about you, Nigel? How does it compare with your musical experiences so far?
Well, I would say, it's just, it's not. I mean, we're not, as Paul said, we're not playing giant places and all that. And I've played similar sort of places or bigger places. I just think it's, it's like a really interesting project, something that we've been doing for quite a while, and it's now nice to see it coming to fruition, whether it be here or now through going to do something with IRS to go to America, or
Yeah, it's a new experience for us insofar as we're working. I've never worked with him before, and he's never worked with me, so it's a whole fresh outlook anyway in the first place.
You said you used to play rockabilly.
Mm-hmm.
Have you always played rockabilly? That's just your style, your point of reference style?
Well, I mean, initially as a teenager, I was a fan of rock and roll,
right.
And it was the sort of course I followed, just because I had a band like at school, and it just went on into the fact that as I got as a teenager, you decide you either, like in England, you decided you was a skinhead or a punk or a
right.
rockabilly or whatever, and that was my preference. As I played the guitar, that was how it came about.
It's interesting because these things sort of it comes from America, but it sort of exists on its own where we don't know about it. Americans don't know about it.
Well, it's funny because in say 1976, 77, there was a rockabilly circuit in England, and they were bringing over like Charlie Feathers and Matt Curtis and all the old American rockabilly stars who were like working in the shop in America,
right.
And they were like stars in England,
right.
Because there was a big and there still is a big sort of movement of record collecting, so they would go over to America and bring in all the old rockabilly singles on the King label and all that sort of things, and then make up compilation albums, and it's an interest for that, because you get the normal straight rock and roll, which is your Rock Around the Clock and Little Richard, and the further you dive into it, you get further back to the rockabilly artists, so as a fan, that was like new material. Although it was old, you could find more and more.
It was fresh, yeah.
It was, and it was like original as well, so you weren't finding remakes of anything. It was more interesting, because the rockabilly was like much more tougher than rock and roll. It was like more. You didn't have to be a greatest player to play rockabilly. It was a bit more interesting to get involved like that.
Yeah, well, Stray Cats were very at home with me.
That's right. Well, they basically broke the band, didn't it? England,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Well, and also the continent as well.
Mm. Well, France and Germany, they're really big rock and roll countries, you know, like fans. And Finland, I mean, we used to go to Finland and Norway, and you know, they're right overboard, like rebel flags, rebel uniforms, like everything, you know. And I mean, I'm from London, so when I fly to Finland and I go and play a gig, and there's all these lads from Finland with like rebel flags and like, you know, it's like you just go, what?
Yeah, it's a funny kind of mentality, and I think the same applies to punk. Punk was really never understood in America. And
No,
you know what?
no.
Look, and obviously you're not, but you know what really pissed me off was recently Rolling Stone came out with an issue devoted to the '70s, and it was like a long article sort of analyzing the musical scene, and they sort of single out punk, and they said disco / funk as the two sort of juggernauts that set the musical scene on its ear. Bullshit at the time, man. When you look at Rolling Stone magazine, you know, in the late '70s, you would see covers with Linda Ronstadt, with Led Zeppelin, maybe Bruce Springsteen. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, punk was largely ignored, misunderstood. Nobody really knew what was going on.
I think it was just the effect of that. It was more the visual sort of side of it that they sort of took up as being. Well, let's put it another way. So somebody asked me the other day. They said about punk. You know, is it, you know, all safety pins and sort of weird haircuts and stuff? But none of the groups had safety pins in their ears or so it's all like the worst aspects were glamorized or publicized, I should say, and the worst aspects were publicized in America. So people didn't really look deep enough. Obviously a lot of people did in the end, but I mean, in terms of the Clash, things started changing when we had songs like Rock the Casbah, you know, because then it really
And then it was no longer considered punk by that time.
no, but it was punk, but it was you know, we've gone through a learning process as well as being able to play a bit better than we did when we first started.
I think the sort of whole hardcore punk thing was basically over by about 1978, 79.
Yeah.
End of there, it was like really, it was. But by that time, it was like it was King's Road stuff. You know, it was like it was just fashion by then, really.
Right.
You know.
Or else it was skinhead.
Yeah, well, it
Nazis.
was. Yeah, completely into something else.
Yeah.
You know, what it started out to be was not really what it. And time it got to America, it was like, you know, they did pretty pick up on the worst bits of it.
It was like
you
a
know.
character, though.
Yeah, that's right. It's like a comic character, really.
The point I was trying to make, though, the reason I brought up your rockabilly background is that there seem to be sort of stylistic pockets, you know, existing in England and the continent. People sort of live within as a little vacuum. And I think punk was one. You know, you consider yourself a punker. And,
Yeah.
You know, if you're a rockabilly player, you know,
Yeah.
you sort of live the whole thing, and,
Yeah.
and you support the look there. In America, that just doesn't exist. We don't have that kind of identification with
No.
a certain genre as a lifestyle, or as a fashion.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess because I read that thing in Rolling Stone magazine, I was thinking about it. But thinking back on punk, and you know, they always want this comment from you, Paul. You know, how does Paul consider punk in retrospect? This is probably the question you're hit with at every interview, and I guess.
Not that often, actually.
Oh, that's right. I thought it would make you know, we could play this for about 30 seconds, and I go on and sort of report on the interview. Maybe it would be a good 30-second thing to play on the radio.
Yeah, well, punk is basically, it's not anything to do with fashion, it's more of a state of mind. I mean, really the word punk is just something that was a label that was put onto the type of music we was doing, and really it was, I suppose, well, musically it was reflecting things that affected you, you know. And insofar as like reggae music, they have, they write about things that happened the other day, you know, in the news or whatever, you know. And it's really it's an attitude of not being pushed around and coming back again, and it's basically getting on with the job and educating yourself, you know, inspiring yourself, and you know, not sort of accept things as they are and try to better yourself and whatever, you know.
I guess what you say could apply basically to any genre.
Yeah, sure.
Punk. It's just that the punk was sort of the squeaky wheel that got the grease there.
Yeah.
It made the most noise. It caused the most uproar. So, you know, to this day, I guess it sort of haunts you. You know,
I'm not bothered about it. It's you know, I had a good time, so you know.
Made out quite well.
Yeah.
I suppose. Saw that movie, Sid and Nancy. This was yesterday.
Oh, I saw that. That's rubbish.
Was that right?
Yeah. The way that was sort of pretty much cartoon characters, such as the way they portrayed John Rotten. That was just ridiculous. He's nothing like that, and it sort of cheapened it. I mean, the way it had him shoveling beans or something like that.
Yeah.
John is like quite a sophisticated person, and he's not like that at all. You know, I think the person who portrayed John Rotten portrayed him as some sort of northerner. You know, sort of drank gallons of beer and just sort of like farted and ate beans all the time and stuff. You know, and I thought the actor Gary Oldman, I thought he was really good. You know, there was certain parts of his portrayal that were quite believable. You know, so I thought he did a very good job. But I didn't really enjoy the film that much. You know, it is maybe for a person who doesn't know, it's probably interesting and informative in some aspects, but a lot of it was a bit off key. You know, it wasn't quite right. You know.
The actress that played Nancy, she's English, right?
I don't recall what her name is.
Yeah, I forgot the name, but just the way she was talking, she was supposed to be an American. It's like her American English sort of shifted with the movie. There, it's like, well, now it sounds like this part American, now it sounds like this part of America.
But you know, that's my attitude. But my attitude's this way because I was there and I was around and I knew these people. You know, so to me to see it in film is like it's a bit difficult for me to be objective. You know.
I thought it sort of cheapened punk as a whole because it chose its most outrageous chapter, and you know, obviously the two of them were totally fucked up by drugs. They were probably slightly mentally ill, especially her, and drugs just sort of exacerbated the situation. It was, you know, obviously, you know, punk's worst moment.
But I suppose the guy wanted to make a film and make some money, so you know, that was an interesting subject.
Has anybody really captured the mood and of the moment on film?
Yeah, I think Don Letts did a film. He basically had like handheld camera, and it's called the Punk Rock Movie, and it's basically people performing and sort of like mad characters jumping around and stuff, and that sort of captured the atmosphere because he was there at the time, you know, filming it on the spot. So you know, that was like a documentary, really, in a way.
Musically, how do you see it in retrospect? Just as music. Forget all the stuff about
you know, it's some of it is really good and some of it is really rubbish, you know. But you know, I think groups like the Sex Pistols, I thought they were really good, and it's like really basic, straightforward music. It was like basically a contrast to the music that was happening at the time, which was like, you know, there were groups like Queen and stuff like that, you know. So it was basically people on the street picking up guitars and bashing away and trying to write songs, you know. Some of them couldn't play so good and got better and whatever, you know. It's just people expressing themselves, really.
I think it's time for one last question. There's one last question here on music now. Are you guys both like pretty active music fans? Do you do much listening to what's happening now?
Not so much. Well, I don't know. I sort of always keep an ear out, but I'm still like I was before. You know, I suppose I'm in one of those pockets where I sort of check a certain type of music. I listen to a lot of Latin American music, like old and new, and I listen to reggae, mariachi bands. I like checking that stuff, flamenco. You know, I sort of got quite a broad outlook, but you know, I don't really sort of go and buy the latest hit single.
I don't. I think I don't know necessarily about in America, but I think in England that I think the charts don't really reflect what's going on at all. I think it's just a whole package for sort of 5 to 15-year-olds, where I think maybe 10 years ago it used to be for sort of 15 to 30-year-old. You know, I think now it's got to sort of I don't know, what does someone call it? Chewing gum for the ears. You know what I mean? And I don't really. I'm not just saying it's because of the situation we're in, but I think there's going to be more people with bands, you know, like in our situation, that will come through out of that, because you know, there's a lot of people that were, you know, teenagers, say at the punk time or whatever, now are really not being catered for or they want to go and see bands, or they want to go and see something, and everything's so slicked up, and like, you know, young kids and the prettiest people and all that, and they're shoved down your throat for 18 months and then you never hear of them again. So I don't, you know, to listen to music is, unless I go specifically to see something or someone tells me about something, I don't follow the charts at all. I don't find the radio all that interesting, really.
I've never been to England, so I don't know for sure. But
you've never been to England?
Yeah, never been to England. Never been to civilized.
Oh, really?
The only exposure I have is like through the music magazines, and also, of course, the music itself. But it seems to me that like people our age, and I'm 31 right now, so probably not much different from you guys. People our age in the UK really don't listen to a hell of a lot of music, do they? It's mainly young people.
Yeah. Well, I think.
I mean, obviously, you guys are musicians.
I think they're a bit more choosy about it, and I think there's more specific things that they would go and see. Where I think before you used to listen to anything, you know. I think now you tend to really choose what you're going to listen to, or find something that you like, maybe follow it through a bit further. You know.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is, like in America, people my age, whether they're involved in music or not, still tend to have a voracious appetite, because, you know, we've always been bombarded by music, and we've always been very selective about what we listen to. And so even when we hit our 30s and 40s, we still go out and buy records and CDs or whatever. I don't get that impression from you know, what I read in the magazines, from actually meeting people from the UK. It seems like they're extremely distanced from it, you know. And when you look at the magazines, I mean, it's like they print information on each and every band that's you know, playing at the club down the block. I mean, you get like a 2-page interview with some band you've never even heard of, and it probably won't even be around, you know, a couple of months. So it seems like, you know, they kind of live for the moment, and the readership is probably very young, and they can appreciate that. I guess is that the situation?
I know, I don't buy the music papers.
Well, there you go. You've already grown out of them.
I think a lot of people. I never really used to buy them anyway, but yeah, probably. I think it's probably maybe a bit like that, you know, where it's just like there's so much that you know you can just, you know, there's so many things going on that people don't really support something over a period of time, you know, like I think they did before. A lot of people would follow something through, you know. Now maybe the younger people might not do that. I'm not really sure, you know.
But you probably are playing to a younger audience now, right?
Well, across the board,
yeah,
you know, our music's for like anybody, really. You know, there's some people that are 5 that like our music. There's people that are about 50 like our music, and probably some older, you know. So it's across the board, really. I think, you know.
It's a pretty good mixture.
Yeah, I think so. You know, I mean, there's obviously people that like going to the disco probably won't like it, you know. But you know, it's all a live band, really.
Is there a place for it on the radio that can fit in with an existing format?
I don't see why not. I'm sure there's, well, it's difficult. I mean, in England there's so many different types of radio stations now because they freed up quite a lot of the airwaves, and so, you know, there's a lot of places it could be played, you know.
I guess I have to do one last thing straight. What's the schedule for you?
Well, we're doing this, go back to England. I'm coming back here in December. Obviously sort our contract out, you know, finish doing that. So we'll probably be making plans for the new year soon, really. So we come back to do this and then work on some more material for another album next year.
So what about, like, in terms of touring?
Touring, well, basically, like Nigel was saying, we're coming back in December to tour Japan, and I think we're doing something like 6 shows all together in Japan, and then the new year, then we'll be playing Europe and America, you know, and whoever else will have us.
I guess the tour plan is sort of contingent on what sort of record you get.
Not really, no. It's just once we got a record deal, things change. Insofar as when you got a record out, people further away are more willing to have you come over, you know.
Is there any talk of opening shows for somebody? I'm sure you have a lot of influential friends who say, "Oh, Paul, why don't you open?"
Not yet. I mean, it's too early for that, you know. I mean, that's something that's all being talked about and worked out. once that will be talked and worked out once the record's about to be released in England and Europe and America, you know. Then they'll start moving on that, you know.
Have you stayed in touch with like friends and contacts?
Yeah, I see them now and again, you know. Just keep in touch, you know.
I'm sure they're all wondering, Paul, when are you going to start up again? So they're probably looking forward to the record. And
yeah, well, you know, my close friends like Joe and that, Joe's drummer, that is, you know, he really likes what we're doing, you know. So, you know, it's really nice when somebody you've worked with before is, you know, giving you the thumbs up, you know.
All right, well, good enough.
All right,
thank you very much. And
thank you.
Like I said, we'll play the sucker on the radio.
Right.
Play the sucker on the radio.
I shall relay the pertinent information in my ensuing report.